Hello. My name is Quatechia of Quatechia Creates, and today we are going to be making an ombre glitter tumbler. If you want to know how we achieve this look, just keep watching. Okay, so today we will be working on a 9-ounce sippy cup. First, we are going to sand this, and I'm using my 60 grit sanding block. The 9-ounce sippy cup tumbler was purchased from crafthaven.com. And the sanding block was purchased from Amazon. I'll leave some links down below in the description box. So when sanding your tumblers, you just want to make sure that you're basically scrubbing off that top protective layer. Once we've completely sanded our entire tumbler, what we're going to do is we're going to wipe it off. I like to clean mine off with water and dish soap. For this base coat, we will be using Primetime White from Counterculture DIY. So when I'm initially putting on my base layer, I don't care to achieve full coverage. It's not my goal because I'm going to put color paint on top of the white. I like to paint it white first so that my true colors can actually shine through. I'll be painting this silver and pink, and I want it to actually be silver and pink. And I say that because if I was to paint pink directly on top of silver, it's going to give you a different color, right? So that's why I'm giving it a white base coat so that I can actually see pink when I spray pink on this tumbler. And once this layer is dry, we're going to take it outside and spray paint it pink and silver on the bottom. And then once that's dry, then we're going to get to our next step. Now, while I did not record the spraying, I used Rustoleum 2 times spray paint. I'll leave the colors down below because I can't remember offhand. But here we are about to apply our glitter using the epoxy method. So we've stirred our epoxy and now we're going to put it on our cup. You're going to use less than 5 ml of epoxy. We're going to smooth this all down our cup. You should have some resistance. If it is going like too smoothly, then you probably got too much epoxy on there. And once you do cover it, you need to wipe some of it off. When using a chunky glitter and a fine glitter, I like to start with the chunky glitter first, because the fine glitter will go every freaking where. This is a chunky mix, so it has some of the big chunks of glitter, and then it has some fine glitter within it. But this is the chunkiest glitter we have, so we're going to use it first, and then we'll come back in with our fine glitter. So now we're going to come in with our pink glitter, our second color. This is a fine glitter. I'll put the name of the glitter down in the description box because I can't remember what it is. So we are going to first make sure that we are getting the rim of the cup, and then we'll kind of bring it down. And I'm so sorry I'm out of frame, but we'll bring it down to meet the silver. We'll get close to the line of demarcation, but we won't pass it, if that makes sense. And once I completely get the top portion, like the rim and, a little bit further down, you'll notice that I tilt my cup up. So then I have a little less control, but it's able to like sparsely go into or go to that line of demarcation versus having so much control and being more of a definite line. So now we're going to use a fine silver glitter to kind of fill in the holes that was left behind by the chunky glitter. Chunky doesn't usually give like a whole lot of coverage, so I like to first use the chunky and then come through. I don't know why I say chunky like that. I like to use the chunky and then come in with a fine to kind of fill in the holes that the chunky left. And also I use this color to help blend that line of demarcation. Now that she is completely glittered, we are going to take a piece of parchment paper and we are going to go in and lay our chunky glitter flat. You can see how it's kind of sticking up in places. So the object of this is to get it to lay flatter so that when we are applying our epoxy, it's not so difficult to get those pieces flat. Because they're sticking up now and they stay on the tumbler, they're going to be sticking up when you go to apply epoxy, which becomes a problem because it's going to make you have to use more epoxy layers to smooth your tumbler completely down. Also, I like to note that when I am glittering my tumbler, I try to avoid putting chunky glitter on the bottom. So as you can see, it's mostly fine glitter, like directly on the bottom of the tumbler. So about 6 hours later, I'd go out and seal my glitters using Rustoleum 2x clear spray paint, and I spray it very generously. Now that it's dry, we're going to go in with our first layer of epoxy. I ended up using about 15 mLs of epoxy for this 9-ounce tumbler. You may use less, you may use more, depending on what glitter you use, your temperature, all kinds of other factors, really. Once we've completely applied our epoxy, we are going to let the tumbler spin for about 6 to 8 hours, depending on your weather, depending on your epoxy. I typically just let mine spin overnight. The next morning, I came and applied another coat of epoxy. Typically, before you can apply decals, you typically need to apply at least 2 layers of epoxy to your tumblers, especially if you have chunky glitter. Sometimes maybe even 3 coats of epoxy before you can apply your decal. I like to focus on having thin layers of epoxy on my tumblers. So I'll go in putting a lot of epoxy on the tumblers, but then I kind of come back after I've completely covered the tumbler and take off some of the epoxy. Because if it ends up curing or drying with too much epoxy on it, then it's going to be harder to fix than having too little epoxy. Too little epoxy, you can just add more epoxy. You'll just need more layers of epoxy. But if you have too much, then you'll be sanding for days to level out your epoxy. Before I apply my decal, I like to go ahead and sand the rim of my tumbler. You can use sanding blocks, but I always use my Dremel, and I'll leave a link down below. The Dremel is just, it makes it so much easier. I like to expose a thin layer of stainless steel at the top, so that my epoxy will have something to adhere to, and I can make sure that my tumbler, all of the glitter in the decal is completely sealed in. So I go in with the Dremel first, and then I follow it up with a sanding block. After sanding it, I go and wash it with some dish soap and water. So anything that comes with like tops that screw on, always put your top on first and then put your decal on so that your decal could be in the proper position. Now, I like to stand my tumblers up when I'm applying my decal because that seems to be the only way that I can guarantee it being straight. Normally I wait until my tumbler is completely finished before I clean up the rim, but I had a hard time putting the lid on, so I don't know, I just took this opportunity to clean it up a little bit. In hindsight, it was a complete waste of time because I ended up having to clean the rim again. But since we're here, I guess we might as well talk about how I clean the rim of my tumblers. So I use a craft knife to scrape off the epoxy. That's what you see me doing here. I do need to change my blade, but I did not. So I'm cleaning my scraping the epoxy off, and I'm making sure that I have the blade like facing inside of the tumbler. After I scrape away most of the epoxy, I go in with some lemon essential oils and a magic eraser that I have cut, and I clean the inside of the tumbler to get all the extra epoxy and the paint from the inside. And all I do is dab some essential oils onto the sponge and just wipe on the inside. It's really easy, it comes off really easy, and then I take a coffee filter or paper towel, whatever I have, to wipe up the excess oil. After using the essential oils, it is important that you wash your tumbler again. You want to clean off all of that oil because it will break down your epoxy. and try to avoid getting it on the outside. So after I washed the tumbler down, I came outside and put the final coats of epoxy on it. This tumbler took 2 layers of final coats. So after our tumbler has had time to cure at least 24 hours, I went in and had to clean the tumbler again, which is why I said the first time was a complete waste of time. I do feel like you had a better angle the first time, so I'm just going to speed through this process. I'm going to use a craft knife, and then I'm going to use my magic eraser along with my essential oils to clean the inside, wipe it up with a coffee filter, and then I'm going to wash it with some dish soap, and she will be done and ready for her photo shoot. And this is what she looks like after she's been all cleaned up and the lid has been applied. These colors are absolutely beautiful together. Amber, thank you so much for your order. And you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please comment down below if you have any questions about anything. Bye-bye.